Join me, Alex Phillips, for the afternoon agenda on GB News, Monday to Thursday from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. We don't lecture to you or try to tell you what to think. We do a deep delve into a topic with views from across the range of debate, therefore leaving you, the viewer, to make up your own mind. Join me, Alex Phillips, for the afternoon agenda on GB News, 4 till 6, Monday to Thursday.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the political correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the political correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News. 4 to the point.
Good afternoon, welcome back to GB News. I'm Rosie Wright. Let's get you up to date with the latest news at 3 o'clock. Boris Johnson has urged world leaders to take action on climate change, telling them it's 1 minute to midnight. The Prime Minister was speaking on the opening day of the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow. Around 120 heads of state and government saw the speech, including US President Joe Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Boris Johnson said our children would pay the price of their inaction.
The longer we fail to act, the worse it gets, and the higher the price when we are eventually forced by catastrophe to act, because humanity has long since run down the clock on climate change. It's 1 minute to midnight on that doomsday clock, and we need to act now. If we don't get serious about climate change today, it will be too late for our children to do so tomorrow.
Environmentalist David Attenborough told delegates that the time for action is now.
In my lifetime, I've witnessed a terrible decline. In yours, you could and should witness a wonderful recovery. That desperate hope, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, excellency, is why the world is looking to you and why you are here.
Well, let's go live to Glasgow because US President Joe Biden is now addressing the delegates.
And that's why my administration is working overtime to show that our climate commitment is action, not words. On my very first day in office, I took action to return the United States to the Paris Agreement. Since then, our administration has been hard at work unlocking clean energy breakthroughs to drive down the cost of technologies that will require us to achieve net zero emissions, and working with the private sector on the next generation of technologies that will power a clean economy of the future. Over the next several days, the United States will be announcing new initiatives to demonstrate our commitment to providing innovative solutions across multiple sectors, from agriculture to oil and gas, to combating deforestation, to tackling hard and to abate industries. We're planning for both short-term sprint to 2030 that will keep 1.5 degrees Celsius in reach, and for a marathon that will take us to the finish line and transform the largest economy in the world into a thriving, innovative, equitable, and just clean energy engine of net zero for a net zero world. That's why today I'm releasing the U.S. long-term strategy, which presents a vision of achieving the United States goal of net zero emissions economy-wide by no later than 2050, and reinforces an absolutely critical nature of taking bold action in the decisive decade. We're also going to try to do our part when it comes to helping the rest of the world take action as well. We want to do more to help countries around the world, especially developing countries, accelerate their clean energy transition, address pollution, and ensure the world we all must share a cleaner, safer, healthier planet. We have an obligation to help. At the United Nations in September, I announced that my administration is working with the Congress to quadruple our climate finance support for developing countries by 2024, including significant increases in support for adaptation efforts. This commitment is made possible to each of our collective goals of mobilizing $100 billion annually for climate finance, but mobilizing finance at the scale necessary to meet the incredible need is an all-hands-on-deck effort. As other speakers today have mentioned, governments in the private sector and multilateral development banks must also do their work to go from millions to billions to trillions, the necessary effect of this transition. Today, I'm also submitting a new adaptation communication laying out how we will implement the global goal of adaptation, as well as announcing our first ever contribution to the Adaptation Fund. But our commitment is about more than just financing. That's a critical piece of it. But we're also going to support solutions across the board. In the lead up to this gathering, the United States joined our G7 partners to launch a Build Back Better World initiative. We also reconvened the Major Economies Forum on Energy and Climate to launch transformative actions and to raise ambition. And together with the European Union, we're launching a global methane pledge to collectively reduce methane emissions, one of the most potent greenhouse gases, by at least 30% by the end of the decade. More than 70 countries have already signed up to support rapid reduction of methane pollution, and I encourage every nation to sign on. It's the simple, most effective strategy we have to slow global warming in the near term. My friends, if we're to recognize that a better, more hopeful future of every nation has to do its part with ambitious targets to keep 1.5 degrees in reach and specific plans of how to get there, especially the major economies. It's imperative that we support developing nations so they can be our partners in this effort. Right now, we're still falling short. There's no more time to hang back or sit on the fence or argue amongst ourselves. This is the challenge of our collective lifetimes, the existential threat to human existence as we know it. And every day we delay, the cost of inaction increases. So let this be the moment that we answer history's call here in Glasgow. Let this be the start of a decade of transformative action that preserves our planet and raises the quality of life for people everywhere. We can do this. We just have to make a choice to do it. So let's get to work, and thank you. Those of us who are responsible for much of the deforestation and all the problems we have so far have an overwhelming obligation to the nations who, in fact, were not there, have not done it. And we have to help much more than we have thus far. God bless you all, and may God save the planet. Thank you.
And there we go. That was President Joe Biden speaking here at the COP26 conference in Glasgow, describing how climate change is already ravaging the world, destroying people's lives and livelihoods, he said, every day, and costing our nations trillions of Joe Biden, the US president, speaking here at the COP conference in Glasgow, which has properly begun today. It is going to last for the next 2 weeks, in which they are hoping, clearly, the delegates here and the many representatives and world leaders, that a deal can be struck in, as I say, the next 2 weeks. A little bit earlier, we heard from the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. He also, it must be said, struck an equally pessimistic tone about the future unless things are to change. Let's listen to what the British Prime Minister had to say here in Glasgow in the last couple of hours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to COP. Welcome to Glasgow and to Scotland, whose most globally famous fictional son is almost certainly a man called James Bond, who generally comes to the climax of his highly lucrative films strapped to a doomsday device, desperately trying to work out which coloured wire to pull to turn it off, while a red digital clock ticks down remorselessly to a detonation that will end human life as we know it. And we are in roughly the same position, my fellow global leaders, as James Bond today. Except that the tragedy is, this is not a movie, and the doomsday device is real. The longer we fail to act, the worse it gets, and the higher the price when we are eventually forced by catastrophe to act, because humanity has long since run down the clock on climate change. It's 1 minute to midnight on that doomsday clock, and we need to act now. And all those promises will be nothing but blah, 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 to coin a phrase. And the anger and the impatience of the world will be uncontainable unless we make this COP26 in Glasgow the moment when we get real about climate change. And we can. We can get real on coal, cars, cash, and trees. We have the technology to deactivate that ticking doomsday device, not all at once. I'm afraid it's too late for that. And as we look at the green industrial revolution that's now needed around the world, we in the developed world must recognize the special responsibility we have to help everybody else to do it. Because it was here in Glasgow 250 years ago that James Watt came up with a machine that was powered by steam, that was produced by burning coal. And yes, my friends, we've brought you to the very place where the doomsday machine began to tick. And even though for 200 years the industrialized countries were in complete ignorance of the problem that they were creating, we now have a duty to find those funds. $100 billion a year that was promised in Paris by 2020, but which we won't deliver until 2023, to help the rest of the world to move to green technology. That the average age of this conclave of world leaders, I'm afraid to say, is over 60. I fully intend to be alive in 2060. I will be a mere 94 years old, even if I'm not still in Downing Street. But you never know. Because if we fail, they will not forgive us. They will know that Glasgow was the historic turning point when history failed to turn. They will judge us with bitterness and with a resentment that eclipses any of the climate activists of today. And they will be right. COP26 will not and cannot be the end of the story on climate change. No one conference could ever change that. If summits alone solved climate change, then we wouldn't have needed 25 previous COP summits to get where we are today. But while COP26 will not be the end of climate change, it can and it must mark the beginning of the end.
There you go, that was Boris Johnson speaking here in Glasgow a little earlier on today, and you're very welcome, I should say, to COP26. We are here with GB News covering the conference for the next 2 weeks. There are representatives from over 200 countries. Today alone, there are world leaders from over 120 countries, tens of thousands of delegates also here in Glasgow as well. Among them, it must be said, at least on an observer basis, is Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, and he is here arguing that actually a green agenda is an attempt to reindustrialise the northwest of England in the years to come. And I had a chance to speak to him here in Glasgow this morning about what he saw as the advantages and opportunities for COP26 for the northwest of England. Let's have a listen.
If we really embrace the drive to net zero, that is the route to level up the country. It's a chance to reindustrialise the north of England. And I think we've got to get our heads into that space now. This is the chance we need to bring about the change that we've been promised, a more balanced country, and crucially, a north of England that has industry of the future. And I'm here to say, I'm ready to work with anybody who wants to make that happen.
It's interesting, the Prime Minister's talked about this a lot, where he argues, Britain's cut its emissions almost by half, but actually GDP has increased. But there's a lot of people in the country still pretty sceptical. They think that actually green issues mean costs for ordinary people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the narrative that's got to change. You've got to give people more to work towards that's hopeful and clearly better than what they've got at the moment. So let's take this crucial issue of public transport. Public transport is expensive in some of the poorest parts of the country. And if you compare Greater Manchester to London, it's 3 times as much to catch a bus in Greater Manchester as it is in London. So if you say to people, look, you're going to have to use your car less and not provide an alternative, well, unsurprisingly, people will tell you where to go. But if you say, and we're going to make buses the same price as London, i.e. £1.55 a journey, you're kind of giving people something to work with there. And I think that's the issue here, isn't it? You've got to kind of give people reasons to buy into this.
Would you at least accept, though, that, actually the government is pretty world leading in all of this? They've set kind of pretty firm targets. They seem to be ahead of the curve compared to even most Western countries when it comes to trying to tackle this issue. And it's clearly something I think Boris Johnson, maybe late to the cause, but is pretty animated and convinced of.
Well, it feels like it's words, not deeds at the moment. But nevertheless, the words are good. And I'm not here to make cheap political points. We have put forward a plan for a net zero Greater Manchester by 2038. And actually, if we were to go on that journey now with backing from the government, that would deliver the levelling up that they've promised. So I think there is an opportunity here for people to come together and really embrace this, but it needs substantial investment up front now of the kind that Rachel Reeves, Shadow Chancellor, has been talking about. We need long-term predictable funding so that we can get the retrofitting of people's homes going, so that we can bring on new industrial clusters around green energy, green hydrogen, so that we can remove the carbon from our public transport system. So, we know what needs to be done, and Greater Manchester is ready to go. We just need the government to say now, right, OK, we see if we empower our cities to move fast on this, we'll probably be more likely to hit 2050 as a country. That's the change that we need. And last week's budget didn't deliver it.
In saying that, Britain can only do so much. I mean, Manchester can only do so much. This has to be a global effort. Everyone seems terribly pessimistic today. That, this might not be the breakthrough moment. We heard from Prince Charles, the last Chancellor, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, are you kind of quite pessimistic too?
Well, you come here, don't you, with a bit of that, but I hope I appear reasonably upbeat in this interview, in that, I've just criticised the government in one way, but they did give us £1 billion for public transport in the budget last week, which is definitely a very good start and a good foundation to build on. Maybe something's going to happen in this fortnight. Maybe there is going to be a sort of collective moment where everyone says, look, net zero is the thing that can take us out of the pandemic, can bring prosperity to people, better jobs for people, more livable communities. Maybe this thing now everyone has to embrace it. Who knows? That could happen. But for me, this critical thing about climate justice and social justice. This could be the path to a more equal country. This could be the path to closing the north-south divide. This could be the route to reindustrialising the north of England in a good way, in a way that gives us industry of the future. So for all of those reasons, why not embrace it? And why not work together? I think the government needs to change policy, though, on a national level to make it happen. I think it requires more devolution of power out of Westminster to the regions, and I think it needs, they need to allow greater control, public control of transport, energy and housing if we're to get the change that we need in the time frame.
But do you understand why some people are sceptical, maybe frustrated, maybe annoyed, and they look at kind of these politicians and leaders and maybe even members of the royal family saying people should eat less meat or they should change their lifestyles, they should drive less. And yet, these are also people who are flying around in private jets, who own loads of homes.
Sure.
There is a sense where actually lots of these people who are preaching to people aren't actually taking on those individual responsibilities themselves.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's loads of that about this, isn't there? And as I say, we've got to get out of the thing where entitled, well-off people look like they're looking down at people and not telling them what to do. You've got to give people genuine incentives to move in this direction. If you take retrofitting people's homes, it's the way you can reduce the cost of living for people. Because if you make people's homes cheaper to heat and to light, that's going to be a benefit to them, isn't it, on the bottom line? Or if you help people buy an electric car, they're much less expensive than a petrol or a diesel car. So the point for me would be help people with the upfront costs of change, because actually then you can reduce the cost of living for people and you can close some of the divides that we have in society. If net zero becomes a way of doing that, actually narrowing the gap between the poorest and the richest, then I think more people might buy into it.
Just finding two kind of slightly connected issues. One on this fishing row that we're seeing. I mean, effectively, do you think this is all a distraction? Do you think we can afford, essentially, this kind of trade war with France? Not just when COP's going on, but also the time when actually there are supply chain issues and all that sort of stuff.
I think this is part of our problem as a sort of, not just as a country, but as a global community. We've had a decade of highly divisive politics where people on the extremes of politics have been screaming at each other, and we've had all of the divisive debates that we've had. And now we're at COP where people have to come together, and it feels like the fishing row is a hangover of the last decade of polarised politics. And I think we need to get out of that and get into dialogue again, a different way of doing politics. I've been, as many people have been, looking back at the Blair and Brown documentary, and it feels to me then that politics was bigger. It was kind of more, it didn't get everything right, of course not, but at least the world was working as one. You remember the bit where Gordon Brown brings the world together in 2008 in the middle of the financial crash and, made a substantial intervention. It doesn't feel like there's the leadership around at this moment to kind of replicate that kind of approach, but that's what we need. It's what we need here. We need somebody to grab this summit by the kind of scruff of its neck and really bring people to the table and say, look, come on, let's put aside the kind of polarised positions that everybody's in. And I wonder whether we can snap out of that slightly polarised populist politics that we've kind of sunk into in recent times.
And then just very finally on that, actually, because it leads on to this about polarised politics, I know Angela Rayner's apologised for the kind of Tory scum comments. I mean, do you think in future, maybe particularly Labour politicians, need to be careful about the language they use when it comes to politicians?
I'd say all politicians. I wouldn't single out Labour politicians because we get attacked as well. All politicians get attacked, and I thought Angela put out a really, really well considered statement last week. When I said at the time I wouldn't use that language. I think all of us in the heat of moments say things sometimes that we regret, and when we do, we're obviously. Believe it or not, politicians are human beings as well. I think everyone does, as I say, I think we need to move beyond this kind of period that we've been in of quite poisonous politics, and it has been quite poisonous at times, on the left and the right at times. We need to move back to kind of respecting each other's opinion, even if we disagree, and conducting public debate in a better way, getting beyond some of the kind of simplicities of social media. As I say, the Blair Brown documentary for me kind of showed us politics when it was bigger, when it was more equal to the problems that the world faces, and now it feels like it's got smaller and a bit more childlike and immature, and we need to, the problems we're facing are too big to allow that to continue. Maybe COP26 in Glasgow brings the world back together, resets things a bit. You've got to hope that's going to be the case, haven't you?
That was Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, speaking to me here in Glasgow a little bit earlier on today. It is also interesting, we're going to see the leaders of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland also here in Glasgow tomorrow alongside Boris Johnson, talking about the United Kingdom and what the different elements of the UK can do during this COP26 summit over the next 2 weeks or so. Right, we're going to pause here live in Glasgow for a moment. We'll be back after the break though. We're going to be finding out how the city of Glasgow is coping with the strain of tens of thousands of people frantically trying to find some food, a drink and somewhere to stay. And also we'll be speaking to the Shadow Environment Minister, Barry Gardiner, who's live here in Glasgow. That in just a couple of minutes after we bring you up to date with all the weather this Monday afternoon.
Hello again. It's another blustery day out there, but through the next 24 hours, that wind will ease somewhat. It's still bringing further showers to many parts of the UK, but away from the showers, sunny spells, and we'll see more of that sort of thing during the next few days as this low moves away. It is slowly moving away, but it is still bringing fairly tightly packed isobars there in the north and gales around northern and northeastern shores of Scotland, along with some persistent rain for northwest Scotland. Showers elsewhere, mainly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland, western England and Wales. But you can see Midlands, East Anglia, southeast, seeing plenty of clear skies overnight. And here, winds will fall away, so a touch of frost in places as we start off the day tomorrow, and a few mist patches. Once any mist patches lift, actually plenty of bright weather around first thing. Long spells of sunshine for many away from northern and western coasts where there will still be further showers coming through. And then into the afternoon, some showers will develop elsewhere. Just about anywhere could see a shower, but they'll be well scattered, they'll be fleeting. And away from the showers, plenty of sunny skies. With light winds, not feeling too bad. Temperatures reaching 11 or 12 Celsius. But that wind is on the cold side and it will push further showers into the north and the west on Tuesday night. Increasingly, a few showers will come in via the North Sea to affect parts of eastern Scotland, northeast England at times through the night. Away from the areas of cloud and showers, clear spells once again, however, and Wednesday begins on a chilly note with a touch of frost in places. But again, despite the chill, actually plenty of sunshine around first thing Wednesday. And on the whole, I think inland, fewer showers to come on Wednesday. Showers mostly affecting coastal areas. Similar again on Thursday, showers tending to ease inland, plenty of sunshine around, and then turning milder later this week.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News Home and Security Editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, called To The Point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me live from 9pm to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Your weekend starts here. My show exists to do three things: to inform, to debate and to entertain. Big guests, big stories and big opinions. And I can't do any of it without you. It's lively and it's a little bit funny. So join me from 9pm to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7pm till 8pm, Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
A very welcome back here to Glasgow and the COP26 summit live on GB News on this Monday afternoon, effectively day one of this conference. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, speaking at the moment, and of course many of the ambitions of what people want to achieve here in Glasgow are based on that Paris Climate Accord back in 2015. Delighted to say joining me live here at the venue is Labour's Barry Gardiner. Good afternoon to you, Barry. First of all, as I say, Emmanuel Macron speaking at the moment. Now, he wasn't president when that deal was signed, but the idea here really in Glasgow, as Boris Johnson keeps saying, is to keep the ambitions of Paris alive, particularly that target of 1.50 degrees in terms of temperature increase.
Absolutely. Look, you don't need me. You've just said it. It was perfect. That's exactly what we've got to do. But of course, to do it, we need everyone, and this was the point that David Attenborough was making, we need everyone to come together and pay their fair share, do their bit. And that's why it's so important, the politics of this. We know the science, we know the technology, we know what needs to be done in agriculture and forestry, we know all these things. What we need now is the political will and the political deal making, and that's why Glasgow is so important.
So why is the Prime Minister and everyone else seemingly so pessimistic?
Well, it's tough to get a deal. It's particularly tough to get a deal, of course, if one of the key players isn't here. And China is, the President Xi at any rate, is not here. And their NDC, their pledge, if you like, their nationally determined contribution, has really not given very much at all. And in particular, what a lot of people have been talking about the need to move past coal-fired power stations, that isn't there in what China's done. They've said they won't finance them abroad as they have been doing, but they're not committed to that domestically. That's really important.
And that was missing from the G20 communique, wasn't it, yesterday as well, on coal specifically. In saying that, is there a recognition, at least from the Labour opposition, that actually the government, the British government, and this goes beyond Boris Johnson or even the Conservative Party, but actually over the last decade or so have been world leading when it comes to commitments on climate change and to changing to renewable energy?
Look, the UK had its groundbreaking Climate Change Act, and in many respects back in 2008 that was, we then set the pattern for how to do this well. But it doesn't mean that we're meeting our own targets, and at the moment we're not. If you look at what's called the fourth and the fifth carbon budget, we're not on track to meet those yet. Now the government's come out with a new strategy, a new net zero strategy, and that looks a lot better, but it's not about putting these things in a document, it's not about setting the target, it's about delivery. And if you look at what some of the NGOs who track this thing, look at what Climate Tracker says, they say that we're not actually doing our fair share yet. We're pretty close, but we're not there yet. But it's not all about the UK, this. And you know, we need to work, as you say, cross-party within the UK to absolutely get to net zero as quickly as we can. But it's not about the UK, it's about the world. It's about the world doing it and doing it together. And that's why these political deals are so important.
But just very finally on this, that is the big criticism, isn't it? That we can all talk in this room and there can be a lot of hot air, if you like, when it comes to trying make those commitments. But with, like China, for example, has emitted more carbon, I think, in the last 10 years than the UK has done since the Industrial Revolution. Without them here, isn't any deal or any commitment pretty meaningless?
Well, that's why I corrected myself. Of course, China is here. It's just that their president isn't.
Yeah. Which is significant in itself.
It is significant, and I think we should make China feel that, and they should pay a political price for that. But, you know, I listened to what the Prime Minister of Barbados was saying today, and she made it very clear. She said, look, in the past few years, the developed world has spent $20 trillion in quantitative easing to get themselves out of the mess. They can't even give climate $100 billion a year as we promised 6 years ago. Sort it out, guys. That was her message, and that's what we need to do. Because actually, the sort of money it takes here to get developing countries into the place that they need to be, to get the action that's necessary, it's peanuts compared with what we were prepared to spend both on the world financial crisis and on the pandemic.
Okay, Barry Gardner, as always, thank you very much indeed for joining us here in Glasgow. We're going to be finding out in just a couple of minutes about how the city has been dealing with the influx of the tens of thousands of people who've arrived over the last couple of days. I think it's fair to say there's been a few strains on public transport, on queues and so on. But before we do that, let's cross back over to London now and get the very latest news at just after 3:30 with Paula Middlehurst.
The latest news this hour. Boris Johnson, as you've been hearing, has urged world leaders to take action on climate change, telling them it's 1 minute to midnight, and if they don't get serious now, it'll be too late for our children tomorrow. The Prime Minister was speaking on the opening day of COP26 in Glasgow. Around 120 heads of state and government saw the speech, including the US President Joe Biden, as well as the French President Emmanuel Macron and the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. A train driver involved in the Salisbury crash on Sunday is suffering from life-changing injuries. British Transport Police confirm there were no fatalities, but 13 people were taken to hospital. They say there's no evidence the train struck an object just before the crash. National Rail inquiries say disruption following the crash will continue for several days. The UK could take legal action if the French don't back down over the post-Brexit fishing row. The dispute comes after the UK and Jersey authorities denied licences to small French boats last month. President Macron warned France will introduce more stringent port and border checks on the UK if it doesn't ease the dispute. Well, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has called the threats unreasonable, suggesting the hardline stance might be because of the upcoming French election. The chief executive of Barclays Bank, Jess Staley, is stepping down from his role after a probe into his links with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Barclays said they were made aware of some of the information into the investigation and were disappointed but didn't provide details. The Financial Conduct Authority report makes no findings that Mr. Staley saw or was aware of any of Mr. Epstein's alleged crimes. And if you've had 2 jabs of the COVID vaccine and they were over 6 months ago, as of today, you don't need an appointment for your booster jab. The 3rd injection is being offered at walk-in vaccination sites. The NHS is aiming to increase jab uptake ahead of what they've described as a few challenging winter months ahead. You're up to date. I have more headlines at the top of the hour. Right now, we're back after this.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the political correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the political correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News for To The Point.
Very welcome back here to Glasgow and COP26. Now, as we've been talking about throughout the entire programme, tens of thousands of people have descended on this city in the last couple of days. There have been enormous strains when it comes to accommodation. Many people looking for hotel rooms have had to stay as far away as Newcastle and Edinburgh. And also, we've seen a bit of queues and chaos to even get into the conference centre today. Well, let's go and talk to Davy Donaldson, who is outside the conference centre and joins us now live. Davy, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just first of all, give us a sense of what is happening on the perimeter and how this city has been building up for this really ridiculously large conference.
Well, first of all, I'll just put it into context why I'm here. This is Fridays for Future. This is a youth protest. Greta Thunberg, somewhere in the middle there, is about to speak to the media. So, yeah, I mean, she's obviously here. She's been getting her message across, as well as speakers from across the globe as well, here in Govan Festival Park, just a stone's throw, just basically across the Clyde from the actual COP26 venue. Yeah, but this is one of a number of protests, hoping to get down to Central Station in the not too distant future, because there's people coming in there, Red Rebel Brigade, Extinction Rebellion, who are coming on a train from the southwest of England to deliver their message. Peaceful protest, I'm told it will be at Central Station. Earlier on, I just missed Will and Kate coming in on the train as well, so they've arrived as well. So yeah, plenty going on, a whole host of protests throughout the week as well. Inundated with them tomorrow. There's going to be some on Wednesday, certainly on Friday, and then the huge one on Saturday. 100,000 people going to gather in Glasgow for that.
Many people would obviously say this is, you know, a big showcase for Scotland's largest city, but there has been criticism, hasn't there, about rats, rubbish, train disruption in the build-up to it. Has that been entirely unfair?
No, I don't think it's being unfair. So I'll probably remain most of the week, because obviously that's where a lot of the protests are taking place, and you saw the size of it, the sheer size of the cordon that's in place, the sheer size of the police operation. And also earlier on, you know, 2-3 weeks ago, I did a report in Glasgow about the rubbish, the fly tipping in the city, the rats, 1.2 million rats estimated to be in the city as well. So yeah, that's not been the best light or spotlight that's been shone in Glasgow. Obviously the bin strike as well is now now back on. So again, that certainly doesn't put Glasgow in a good light either. But yeah, it's not been the best of build-ups, but you have to say that perhaps maybe the delegates won't notice, but I think if they have eyes, they'll see what's going on.
Davey, thank you very much indeed. David Johnson there joining us outside the conference venue here in Glasgow. Now let's look at this idea about carrier bags. We all know we've got used to, haven't we, getting used to plastic carrier bags or sorry, a lack of them in recent years. And certain shops and different containers are doing different things to try and mitigate as much plastic as possible. And our reporter, Pulvinder Sidhu, has been out and about in the West Midlands to be finding out what precisely has been happening.
8-year-old Ella is the inspiration behind this general store, which is single-use plastic-free. Her mum Lizzie says it all started when her daughter said she wants to stop using plastic straws.
She was very animated about sea turtles and straws at their noses, and to be honest with you, I didn't pay much attention because I didn't do anything environmentally friendly apart from putting the recycling in the bin every once in a while. But when I sat down and spoke to her, she was really very passionate about it. So we decided to just make very small, simple changes, and the first one was changing from a plastic straw to a paper straw.
She would buy like things in plastic containers. She would buy me like these little Lego pots that were fully made of plastic, and she would never really look out for what's plastic and what could actually help the environment. But then she like got the message that it was really happening and affecting our world.
So small changes in the home led to the opening of this store. Here you can bring your own empty containers, take what you need without any waste. So I have bought my own. I've got here, I've bought an empty ice cream tub. And I've got a lot of these at home. They're all like takeaway containers. So I bought a few of them. Now, Lizzie, just tell me, just talk me through how it all works.
We would weigh your empty container, and this gives us what's called your tear weight. That's the weight of your empty container. Stick that on there, and then you can go and fill with whatever products you want.
You can get most things here, from fresh fruit, vegetables, frozen pastries and household cleaning products.
We have oils and vinegars, and you can bring your glass bottle or your plastic bottle or whatever you like to refill it.
Lizzie says she was inspired by a similar shop in Birmingham.
There's a very strong community presence in this village. I've lived here most of my life, and it just seemed that if it was something I was interested in doing, maybe somebody else would be interested in it too. And the feedback from the community has been amazing.
I've noticed the recycling, for example, since they've opened and I've been coming in here, the amount of packaging that has gone down in my recycling bin, it's like a third, and it used to be full.
It is more expensive, but you know, for me, that's worth the extra, to be able to get something, you know, is fresh and not be buying something packaged.
Some of our products will be more expensive. The difference with us, I think, is that with what you get with a few more pence is you get a better quality of produce. And also knowing that you are buying from a business that only shops for ethically sourced as well as environmentally friendly products.
Maggie's a local supplier who creates her own skincare products at home using wax and honey from her bees.
We're supporting the bees, so whenever I sell anything, it goes back into looking after our bees. For the environment, my tins are completely environmentally friendly and can be recycled. The products I use are natural.
Ella's Earth has only been open a few months, and Lizzie says she's surprised how quickly people have adapted to a new way of shopping.
The first couple of days that we opened, people were coming in not quite sure what to do. Probably within about 4 days of opening, about 70% of our customers were bringing their own containers. They adopted it much quicker than I thought they would. Definitely not an eco-warrior, I'm just a mom. really. It's just about supporting my family, supporting my children as they go through their lives.
I'm really happy for my mum because she used to always buy plastic, but now she's trying to look out for everything and she's trying to make sure that we're the best we can be.
Could this be the future of shopping as the race is on to reduce our carbon footprint? Balvinder Sidhu for GB News.
There we go, that was reports on the changes that some people are making in the West Midlands. Now, let's move on to another big story that's been dominating politics over the last couple of days. And that, of course, is this fishing row with France, with the UK today saying that it is prepared to take that legal action against France in the ongoing post-Brexit fishing rights row. Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, speaking this morning, saying that France could well see retaliation if it starts to block British boats from its ports, and there's even talk about cutting electricity supplies to Jersey. France is setting a deadline of tomorrow. Let's get to the bottom of what is all happening here and talk to a man who should know, Paul Lyons, who is the chairman of the Lowestoft Fish Market Alliance. Good afternoon to you, Paul. I suppose, first of all, just talk about the real issue here, which is about licensing that British and French fleets have access.
Well, the real issue...
That is the real root of the cause of this disagreement, isn't it?
Well, the problem here is that the French can't understand and they can't decipher what the TA Trading Cooperation Agreement says. It says plainly for everyone to see that you have to be fishing in them waters during a reference period, and that reference period is from 2012 to 2016. And as soon as we had our referendum, that reference period was over. Well, they can't prove they were there. I mean, they've issued licences, and they did very quickly, to all the people who were eligible. I mean, but the French, they got this certain arrogance about them that they think, well, hang on, we haven't got no logbook record, we haven't got any records ever that we fished there, but we'll try and make something up and see if we can get away with it, because the value of them licences is enormous. You can't begin to believe how much money they're worth. But I mean, we have given 1,700 odd licences, but they don't qualify for these last few. But to threaten and bully people, like turning electricity off, and they're going to shut markets down, I mean, we ain't going to put up with that. They picked on the wrong nation of people to be doing that. I mean, diplomacy is out the window once you've been threatened and bullied.
So what do you think then, Paul, the French are playing at here?
Well, I think that's a huge Emmanuel Macron posturing that he's the great people's leader, and he's just after vote winning. Look what Boris Johnson did. Boris Johnson plainly made fishermen the poster boys of Brexit till he got his 80 seats. Then when he done the deal, he dumped us. And I think Emmanuel Macron is doing the same old play. At the end of the day, he don't care no more about them fishermen. He's got bigger fish to fry, if you pardon the pun. But it's a game to the French. They think that they're going to bully us, and the rest of Europe is going along with it because they hate that we dare leave. We left Europe, and we shouldn't even be arguing with France. We should be arguing with Europe. And if I had my way, I'd recover all them licences off foreign boats, and I'd say, sort France out and you can have them back. And I'd leave it at that. Because the EU sorting this problem out, not us.
Paul, the person, though, who said that there's bigger fish to fry, actually, in all of this was Boris Johnson, suggesting the world should be focused on climate change, not necessarily on this fishing row. And in the end, there'll be a lot of people sitting here saying, you know what, we can afford a trade row or a trade dispute with the rest of the European Union, given where we're at economically. And in the end, fishing is just a tiny part of our economy. And if it means sacrificing fishing, well, that's the most sensible thing to do.
Well, we've sacrificed it once with the Trading Cooperation Agreement. That gave us nothing. We're worse off now than we ever were. But if the people of this country want to be bullied and their government won't stand up to a bully, I think the respect that the government will get will be absolutely zilch. Because you can't let someone bully you. You know what I mean? Where's Margaret Thatcher? Now we need her. She didn't stand up to bullies.
So you're essentially saying Britain shouldn't step down in all of this?
No, not at all. If we step down in this, we'll be forever servants to Europe. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to hurt us for leaving in the first place. But I mean, if we now let them beat us and give in to them, well, why have rules? That's the main thing. They are not abiding by the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. We are. They're not. So why would you give in to them? I mean, at the end of the day, Europe have got to pull France in line, and they've got to say to them, it hurts both sides. If you escalate this into a trade war, it'll hurt everybody. We're not wrong. We're dead right. We've not got to issue them licenses because they do not qualify. So if you start bowing down to people, you'll be used forever. Never, never, ever bow to a bully.
OK, well, Paul, you certainly got strong views on this, and the British government are giving the impression that they will not be bowing down to France, but a compromise will have to be reached, I suppose, at some stage. Paul, thank you very much indeed. Paul Lyons there, joining us from London.
Good afternoon to you.
And we're going to be keeping a very close eye on this over the days to come, particularly tomorrow, when the French have suggested that is going to be a deadline, potentially for retaliation when it comes to this dispute that we've seen, and that they could ratchet up the pressure on the UK with some disruption to trade if there is no compromise to be found. So we'll have coverage on that. But, as I say, we are in COP for different reasons in Glasgow, talking about this climate change subject, in which there are tens of thousands of people here. So let me give you a little look around this conference hall, because here we are. It's quite impressive, it must be said, in terms of how many people are here and the setup that is here. We're only in one little bit, but they have really decked it out quite well. We've got a COP26 little kind of vegetable design thing that people are taking lots and lots of selfies with. But let me take you through to one of the main areas where you'll see kind of lots of people at least pretending to work to a degree. Lots of people on social media tweeting and doing some work. As I say, there are lots of delegates here from 200 countries, representing obviously billions of people around the world. But why agreement is really difficult to a degree is because actually you've often got 200-300 people in a room trying to thrash things out, and that makes it really difficult, and why maybe the Prime Minister's a little bit pessimistic about trying to reach a deal in these weeks to come. Obviously the key point of this COP conference is this amazing representation of the globe, which is kind of hanging over this main arena here in Glasgow. As you can see on the TV screens, there are world leaders constantly giving speeches throughout this afternoon. In the last hour or so, we've heard from Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, and others. There's a big reception here in Glasgow tonight for world leaders, in which Boris Johnson and members of the royal family will be hosting them. But the key thing here is this is only one little bit. Through that door, there is a whole other massive complex with thousands of people and stands. And obviously, the big thing to note here is that there is literally the world's press at this conference. We're going to have full coverage throughout the afternoon, throughout the days to come here on GB News, particularly here on the briefing every afternoon at 3. I hope you'll join me live from Glasgow for that. Up next, though, on GB News, we join Alex Phillips for the afternoon agenda. But first, let's go to the Met Office for the weather this afternoon.
Hello again. It's another blustery day out there, but through the next 24 hours, that wind will ease somewhat. It's still bringing further showers to many parts of the UK, but away from the showers, sunny spells, and we'll see more of that sort of thing during the next few days as this low moves away. It is slowly moving away, but it is still bringing fairly tightly packed isobars there in the north, and gales around northern and northeastern shores of Scotland, along with some persistent rain for northwest Scotland. Showers elsewhere, mainly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland, western England and Wales. But you can see Midlands, East Anglia, southeast, seeing plenty of clear skies overnight. And here, winds will fall away, so a touch of frost in places as we start off the day tomorrow, and a few mist patches. Once any mist patches lift, actually plenty of bright weather around first thing. Long spells of sunshine for many away from northern and western coasts, where there will still be further showers coming through. And then into the afternoon, some showers will develop elsewhere. Just about anywhere could see a shower, but they'll be well scattered, they'll be fleeting. And away from the showers, plenty of sunny skies. With light winds, not feeling too bad. Temperatures reaching 11 or 12 Celsius. But that wind is on the cold side and it will push further showers into the north and the west on Tuesday night. Increasingly, a few showers will come in via the North Sea to affect parts of eastern Scotland, northeast England at times through the night. Away from the areas of cloud and showers, clear spells once again, however, and Wednesday begins on a chilly note with a touch of frost in places. But again, despite the chill, actually plenty of sunshine around first thing Wednesday. And on the whole, I think inland, fewer showers to come on Wednesday. Showers mostly affecting coastal areas. Similar again on Thursday, showers tending to ease inland, plenty of sunshine around, and then turning milder later this week.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there. My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.